A UFO orb has been x-rayed, and we have been able to see what's inside. An FAA advisor has come out after 30 years and one pilot's termination, claiming that he was able to confirm a UFO that pilot reported, which is why he got fired. And a NASA senior, NASA retired employee has come out and had some pretty crazy things to say, the least of which were that astronauts have told him straight up that they have experienced UFOs tracking their ship. They've even experienced UFOs taking maneuvers with the ship. Crazy, crazy couple of weeks. Once again, thanks for tuning in. You're watching Gabriel Speaks. All right, y'all, let's get right into it. This sphere deal, this is so crazy. So a few weeks ago, we got this footage down in Colombia, and and what it was is the sphere. You can see a picture of it here. Kind of zoom in a little bit. You can kind of see it there. I'll add it as a screenshot too, but you can see this orb here. And the report was, and there's actually video footage of it as well, just floating around, and then it just crashed. You can see the still of it here in the forest. Now, this gentleman recovered this thing, and if you go digging into the story, essentially this guy that recovered this thing sold it to kind of this wealthy guy who owned this company called Germany or something, and then that gentleman in turn, so the story goes, turned it over to this UFO reporter in Mexico because he was tired of getting all of these inquiries about what he was going to do with this orb. My question is, if you're super wealthy and you purchased this thing, what were your plans? Like, you didn't think people were going to bug you about it. But anyhow, and the reason I bring up that speculation is because we need to be really careful in this story. This is fascinating stuff if it's real, but that's the big thing here, is if it's real. Now, here's the report coming from the Daily Mail. These scientists studying a spherical UFO, they say they've discovered alien technology, which is pretty insane. Now, here's, you can see the video of it there, kind of flying around, pretty wild. Now, this is what's stunning, and I'm going to add some screenshots to this as well. But oh my gosh, look at that, y'all. If that is real, that is groundbreaking. We don't even know what that is. Now, you go to Reddit, you do deep dive into this. There's plenty of people willing to discredit this. Here is a photo of what the X-ray team got back. Apparently, this was some kind of mobile X-ray team you could hire. So, this isn't like a university doing this. Now, not to discredit the mobile unit, I believe what their job is real and everything. Okay, they what the technology they used to perform these X-rays is real. You can watch a video of them doing it, but like I said, this isn't like a university study. So that's pretty stunning. We could be looking at right now the inside of one of these spheres, which apparently contains all these smaller little spheres inside of it, which is super, super random. Here's the guy, David Velez. He's the one that found it. You see him holding it there. And I don't know how I'd feel about just holding this thing without, like, I don't know, rubber gloves and a mop suit on or something. I mean, who knows what that thing's made of. Do you see it kind of like, you just see little orbs within it. They haven't really mentioned any like material or anything. Let's take a look at this video that came out. See if I can get it pulled up here. I'm going to turn the volume all the way down because it's in Spanish anyway. But we do have it dubbed. in English for us. So there's the orb. Pretty fascinating. May 1st, Mr. Jose Luis Velasquez, an X-ray specialist, he performed all these different tests on this Buga sphere. And then, there's some of the video of it there you can see. Apparently, the images and the video have all been proven to be legitimate. According to who, I'm not exactly sure. You can see here, there's a thick layer in gray tones. Another dense layer can be seen, which would confirm that the sphere is not hollow and would explain its unusual weight, which has been inexplicably documented to be variable. A series of 16 points surrounding the nucleus were also detected. These are believed to be microspheres. A dark tone element was observed in the interior of the sphere. You can kind of see it there. So it could be the least dense or porous part. So then it goes on to explain, see, they're using radiology because it's non-invasive. We don't have to crack it open and then find out the Andromeda strain is in there, and kind of take a look at what is in there. So here it goes on. There's a density with different materials. Suggests the piece is an external sphere plus an internal part. Well, I would assume if they're flying around everywhere, they got to have something inside of them making them do that, right? Here we see the video, about the 3 layers, so on and so forth. So that's pretty crazy. I mean, tell me what you think down in the comments. I would seriously like to get some folks' input on this one. Is this thing legit? Do we need to do some more investigation? Do we even just not even give it the time of day? I mean, what is this thing? Is this like a spoof? Because apparently the reporter that took over ownership of the sphere has been known to be involved in some kind of not really wacky, but just downright fake things in the past. So AI videos claim that they're real, this and that kind of thing. So it's hard to say if this whole story was just kind of like an orchestrated over time plant, or if this is really the first time we're getting to peek inside one of these orbs. And if that's the case, that is absolutely, just baffling, right? It's so crazy to think about if that's real. I would love to know what y'all think down in the comments. This one is not going to be so shocking. We've talked about Lou Elizondo on the show a few times. I don't know, man. I don't really care either way. But when you're out there and you're supposedly have all these contacts and what you're bringing out is legitimate, you don't have any agenda, everything's vetted, all your contacts are great, then you come out at a UFO conference, where there were members of the House Oversight and Accountability Team present, and you show a picture of a UFO that's already been debunked. Like, how does that work? How does a guy like Lou not understand how crop circles work? Not crop. Well, they're crop circles from watering, essentially, from the irrigation system. So not like alien crop circles, but you were supposedly, you were tasked, and it has been confirmed, with doing all this stuff to do with UAP and UFO, and you brought this picture here to the right and held it up and said this was a huge, gigantic UFO that a pilot took over wherever. And I can see how it can look like a UFO, but I'm not Lou Elizondo. Like, nobody cares about what I have to say. But when you put yourself up there, like he has, you see something like this and your eyes play a trick on you and you're like, oh my God, that's a huge UFO out in the middle of the country. It's not. It's a crop circle from irrigation. So not a great look for Lou Elizondo there. And he came out on Twitter. He didn't apologize. He just said, well, that wasn't the point. The point was these things could be all around us and we wouldn't even know. Yeah, whatever. Getting to the NASA guy. Now, this is crazy. All right. This is Dr. Gregory Rogers. He served as NASA's chief flight surgeon and a U.S. Air Force major. Spoke with the Daily Mail. You can watch the interview. And he told them that in 1992, he viewed security footage of a UFO, a flying saucer, just hovering in a Cape Canaveral hangar. He kept that secret for like 25 years almost. He's a medical staff to the astronauts there at NASA. That's an important job. You don't want to start talking about UFOs, especially in the 90s. Worked with Department of Defense, so he needs to maintain his clearance. So if they say, look, this is classified, you don't say anything about it, that's what you do if you want to maintain what you're doing. But since he has retired, came out and said, look, I want to tell you about this stuff I saw, and I want to tell you about this stuff I heard from these astronauts. Check out what he had to say. Some of these astronauts told him. Listen to this.
Astronauts have discussed UAPs with me, but without them giving permission for me to bring their name into it, there's no way on earth. One of the things that I've heard quite often is that when the space shuttle was up, even the International Space Station for missions before the space shuttle, going to and from the moon, vehicles that were not part of the human space program, as far as we know, being in near location to the spacecraft in some type, even sort of flying information with them, is not uncommon. They've seen these things. There are loads of astronauts that have their own stories. But if you're in the astronaut corps and you want to fly on the next mission, you're not going to improve your odds by telling somebody, oh yeah, last time I was up, I saw a flying saucer. Okay, well, we just took you off the crew.
Astronauts obviously are going to be super passionate about what they're doing, right? They spend their whole life working up to that position. If you're a kid, you want to be an astronaut, that's a tough road. You get there, you see these weird things, you'll tell your boss, but if your boss says, like that's what you're going to do because you're getting to fly into space, your dream job. And so I think there's a lot of credibility there. I think that the man has worked with astronauts for a long time. I would love for him to come on the show and talk to us about it, about what that was like firsthand. I'm looking for his contact information. Hopefully I can find it. When you talk about astronauts having experiences, immediately my mind goes to like Buzz Aldrin. There was that video that came out where he told that little girl she was super smart. She asked him about space travel and he told her, oh, we haven't even gone to the moon ourselves. What? And Buzz at that point is an older gentleman, but I don't think he had like lost his faculties or anything. So that was pretty interesting for him to say. And I think there's definitely some validity to what Dr. Gregory Rogers is talking about here. It's fascinating. It's an interview that you should definitely watch. I hope you enjoyed the audio there. Moving on, there's this story that came out, and I wanted to make sure we talked about it because 30 years ago, this pilot named Captain Kenju Taruki and his crew aboard Japan Airlines Flight 1628 reported two mysterious lights trailing their plane when they were flying over Alaska. Now, the objects were confirmed by both onboard and ground radar. It shadowed the flight before vanishing. Then, Tarichi described the sudden appearance of a colossal craft, far larger than his Boeing 747, prompting intense speculation and debate. A lot of people didn't want to believe what he had to say. Despite him giving a detailed testimony, gave a bunch of FAA interviews, actual crew on the craft made sketches of the craft. There were audio recordings between the Japan Airlines Flight 1628 crew and traffic controllers. And still, it's faced a lot of dispute over the years. Did this really happen? Is that, that's something that sounds crazy. Well, not so crazy, because a high-ranking FAA official later claimed he was present when the CIA allegedly suppressed the incident, insisting Taruchi's sighting never happened. So it cost Taruchi his career, as the veteran pilot was grounded after publicly discussing the event. There's been some recently declassified documents revealing the extent of evidence held by both Japanese and U.S. governments regarding the UFO mothership, including radio transcripts detailing the moment the giant mothership appeared above Flight Team 1628. A senior official with the FAA at the time believed the Japanese pilot's story and claimed the CIA was suppressing evidence. John Callahan was charged with overseeing the FAA analysis of this high-profile case. He collected data, including the radar tapes, air traffic control voice recordings, and the written statements from the JL flight crew. However, in January 1987, briefing with the CIA, FBI, and White House officials, Callahan claimed the investigation was abruptly shut down. Quote, when we got all done with our briefing, it took a couple of hours, the CIA man stood up and said, this never happened. We were never here. You're all sworn to secrecy, and we are confiscating all of this data. Callahan told that to Larry King in 2007. Now, John Greenwald of the Black Vault, it's a website that archives a bunch of classified government documents, discovered more than 1,500 pages of evidence tied to Flight 1628 in the National Archives, then shared them with everyone, along with the interviews of all three witnesses and the crew, and the recordings, and the records, and the radar simulations of what Taruchi saw, and a mountain of requests to the FAA from the public seeking information. So everything's there on the Black Vault site to check out. Now, you can also go to the archive.gov site. You can find a bunch of this crazy stuff as well. And it's just another example of, I guess, this time the CIA shutting this knowledge down. And I've been thinking a lot about that lately. Why is the CIA so interested in this going nowhere? It seems like they're always running this subject matter into the ground with either bad info, bad intel, deliberately, maybe not deliberately. I really don't know. It just seems like this whole UAP thing, UFO thing is just completely shadowed by whatever this force is that's driving this secrecy. I don't know if that's like, that could be so many things, right? My mind goes to, is it a form of control because it's been decided that the truth might just be too much for us? It's wild. Is it just that they really don't know, or that they do know and they're scared of us knowing for whatever reason? I think all of the above apply. And it's still possible. There's so many things that are possible. You know, a lot of talk about the simulation theory has been going around lately about is this all a simulation? The way, you know, the study that came out about how plants can essentially change their molecular makeup to get sun energy where they need to get it most efficiently, and then kind of switch their molecular makeup back. What does that tell us about reality in general? So there's all these things related to that that are really mind blowing. Um, so there's a simulation theory, right, which is super heavy topic to get into. I'm no expert. Would love to have an expert on to talk about it sometime, and we will. Don't you worry. But I think it's absolutely fascinating. At the current moment, I'm just learning more about it. I also want to let y'all know that I have switched up from Living Umpqua to Gabriel Speaks, and that's because I didn't want to kind of pigeonhole myself. So Living Umpqua kind of pigeonholed myself to the Southern Oregon area, which I love, by the way. Um, and then Living Umpqua saying it's a Living Umpqua UAP UFO show. That I felt like that was kind of pigeonholing me into just talking about UAPs and UFOs when there's just so much more I'm interested in. There's so much more I want to talk to guests about. There's so much more I want to interview people about and dig deeper into. So I named it after my name, The Gabriel Speaks Show. And I hope that you'll enjoy it here on out. The plan is to get some interesting guests on, pick their brains, have some fun, let y'all listen to it so that it's not just my voice going on and on. Um, but that's the plan. And if you are interested in collaborating with me, I'd love to hear from you. Let's get into this drone thing. This drone thing is pretty wild. I've talked about it a couple times on previous episodes, and it's really alarming. These drones are able to make incursions over our military bases. I served in the military, but I was a while ago. Drones weren't a big concern back then. I can tell you, present day, it would be something I'd be a little concerned about, something I would want to know about, know how to defend against, know what the rules are of defending against it. We had these drone hearings a little few weeks ago, and I talked about it a little bit on my video. And we talked about Title 10, Section 130I, and what that means for the United States. And to be clear, I mean, what that means is that the military can engage drones, foreign or domestic, inside the United States. So like we're looking at like our military shooting at things inside of our country, and everyone's okay with that because they could be these foreign drones. And I just don't know. I I don't want drones over our military bases, obviously, but we don't shoot down satellites because they're in space and they're trying to observe 100%. They're trying to check out our military bases, right? Why else? We fly satellites over other countries and our agencies use them to gather data. So it's only logical to assume that other powerful countries are doing the same to us. And you go back to the whole thing that Paul Benowitz was driven crazy over because Doty was telling him, that he was hearing alien communications when really it was Doty trying to protect this laser that would shoot into this Russian satellite that would fly overhead at that time, and it would block out the images, block out what that satellite could see of the Air Force base. And that was super critical, right? We're talking defense of our military bases, especially back then, the midst of the Cold War. I don't think it excuses what they did to poor Paul Benowitz at all. I think anyone in this community agrees to that, which is why I don't understand why Doty is so popular and like still making the rounds and still being interviewed. I don't know how you could believe anything he has to say. He's an admitted liar. So it, you know, doing it in the name of protection. Okay. All right. But literally watching a man go crazy and not stopping it or changing the approach or making some adjustments, that's just dirty, man. That's not cool. I don't like it. Which is why I'm not a huge Doty fan. I think that's pretty crazy. Another thing I want to talk about, and I'm gonna be careful here, is Amy Eskridge. And I've mentioned her in a previous video. Amy Eskridge was a brilliant mind in Huntsville, Alabama. She was the daughter of a rocket propulsion engineer who worked at NASA. She got older, got her degrees, plural degrees, masters, doctorates, and she began to work for NASA as well, in addition to starting 2 private aerospace companies. She was working on an anti-gravity solution, breakthrough. She was telling everyone she was very close. She was working with some friends to try to very tactfully and strategically lay out this plan to share anti-gravity technology and theory with people that was going to be a huge breakthrough. The problem is there's a lot of stuff out there of her saying that she was being tracked, harassed, tapped, hacked, and also hit with DEW. Those are, directed energy weapons, if you're not familiar, which basically the folks that suffered, and you may have heard of it in Havana, Cuba, or in Cuba, the U.S. Embassy, where there were folks there that got hit with these directed energy weapons, and they literally had to like leave because it was making them super, super sick. And some of them still have issues they're dealing with right now. So there's some video out there of you can actually see the injuries, the physical injuries because of this apparent group. We don't know the group that was doing this to her. We don't know the interest that was doing this to her, but she was very afraid of getting disappeared, and she was very afraid for her life. And after some time, and some delays with some of her paperwork with NASA, she was found dead. And the official line was she committed suicide with a handgun. There is not a lot you can find out there about Amy Eskridge. Nothing mainstream anyway. You could probably find 100 videos about her on YouTube, but nothing you're going to see on the nightly news, which to me is fascinating because you had Ning, who it turned out she didn't get taken back to China. She didn't, sell out or any of this stuff. Like this terrible guy wrote this paper saying, she took a $44 million grant or something, or $400,000, $500,000 grant, and then took off to China and she was working with it. No. There's an article out there with her son. You can read it. Ning got hit by a car. She got run over on her way into work one morning, and her husband witnessed it. And her husband who witnessed it had a heart attack, and he passed away. Ning went into a coma, then suffered Alzheimer's, and her son had to take care of her until she passed away. It's a very, very sad, tragic story. So is the Amy Eskridge story. And Amy mentions a few people actually that are out there right now making the rounds, such as Hal Puthoff, who is just on the Joe Rogan show, who I've never seen anybody managed to do a 3-hour podcast and really not say anything. Like, he didn't divulge shit. I think there was some story that came out and said, like, oh, he said there was 10 craft, but he didn't really say that. He said, like, oh, maybe there's 10 craft. Wouldn't talk about where they may be or what happened to them. Or it was just 3 hours of typical CIA knowing exactly what to say, when to say it, how to say it. There's no one out there that has more available content to listen to, I don't think, than Joe Rogan. And so if you were a CIA operative going in there with a clear message you wanted to deliver, like how put off actually was, he doesn't say he is anymore, but was, probably did some study up on you, and knew exactly how to control that conversation. At least that's how it seemed. It seemed like he was kind of in control and driving that whole thing. And I love Rogan. I think he does a great job. He's a comedian, but he just so happens to have an above average intelligence, and he has on some awesome guests. But like he's not like Bob Woodward. So you get Hal Puthoff in there, a guy in the CIA that, holy crap, he could run circles on his worst day, probably around me and anyone watching this channel. Go in, and he knew exactly how to control that conversation. I don't know how I feel about Hal Puthoff. I don't know if I feel one way or another. Amy sure was not a fan, though she did say nice things about him occasionally. That's what's so crazy about the whole like CIA thing, right? It's like, are they your buddy or are they manipulating? What a tangled web that is to try to unravel. I don't think you can. However, it was a masterclass in how to say a lot of things without really saying anything, unfortunately, because I would have liked to heard a lot more. That's the other thing, is like anything fascinating that Hal might have been a part of, can he really talk about it? Does it ever get to that level? I mean, I don't know. I had a very, very low level clearance because of what I did. And I know there were things I couldn't talk about for years. And that was super, super low level. Like, we're talking just day to day operational stuff. So you get up that high with that type of clearance. I don't know if you ever really retire. Maybe you aren't in the field active for a while, but I don't know that you ever just retire from the CIA. Maybe somebody from the CIA can leave a comment or send me a message and let me know. All right, y'all. So we had the Booga orb, right? We had the NASA guy come out, say that he saw a UFO, and astronauts are reporting some crazy, crazy things that they've seen in the sky, in space. We had Hal Puthoff on Rogan, and we talked a little about Amy Eskridge. I do plan on eventually kind of doing a full documentary on Amy. That's kind of like going on in the back of my head. I'd really like to tell her story in a really meaningful way, because it's just so interesting to me, and it's just so tragic what happened there. And we had the pilot, the FAA guy, come out 30 years after the Japanese pilot had been fired and say, he wasn't lying. I mean, I don't know how grateful he is now, the pilot anyway. But it's interesting to know that they were able to confirm that, and an FAA advisor came out and said, no, the CIA told us to shut up about that. Wow. We really are, I think, inching a little closer every day to what the truth might be. And I think we all sense it. It's a little frightening, but it's also very exciting, because we could be a generation right now that makes a huge pivot. I think we all feel it. It just seems like change is a coming on a consciousness level, on a technology level, on a knowledge level, I think we're at the very precipice of something really big. And probably the reason you're listening and watching is because you feel a little bit the same way too. We're not sure what it is, and it's hard to decipher the fake from the real, but there's a there. Are we in the Matrix? I don't know. Are we being visited by extraterrestrials? Maybe. Is it not extraterrestrials, just AI collecting data? Am I uploading this video to the dead internet where really nobody's going to watch it, just a bunch of bots? I don't know. But I know that all of us questioning these things, even the reality that exists around us, I think that's a good thing. I don't think that's bad. I think that's just going to lead to more knowledge and more thirst for knowledge. And that's exciting to me. That's way more exciting than this ridiculous game, geopolitics. It's costing like tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people their lives for just bullshit, power, wealth, and trade. All the stuff that doesn't really, we wouldn't be willing to die for on a day-to-day basis. We just, you know, what we're willing to die for is our family, ourselves, our survival, and our families. But I don't think any one of us would pick up arms because of a weird trade agreement or something, which is just crazy that we're in this world now. We're not going to go down that hole on this episode. This episode, again, I just wanted to let you all know that we're moving on from Living Umpqua. We're moving on to Gabriel Speaks. Going to be a podcast. Hope y'all share it. Hope y'all enjoy it. Hope y'all like it. You subscribe, all that good stuff. And I hope y'all enjoyed the episode. Got something good out of it. I know I found all those stories absolutely fascinating, and that's just a couple weeks worth of info. I mean, you barely have time to dive into one story, and another story is coming out, which really, again, makes me feel like we're kind of on the precipice of something. So, thank you again for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your evening or morning or whatever time of day it is, wherever y'all are. And I'll see you next time on Gabriel Speaks.